fly, it takes a few, but you know, the English one you can usually do it yourself. Thank God they hadn't invented light bulbs.
Doing a documentary for the Virginia Regiment. It's a whole documentary about the history and the whole country. It's a fun project. I enjoy working on it. I'll probably do
Get that rhythm.
I mean the whole project. So, it ends in August, and then it will be at the Historical Society's theater. Yep. Yes. Oh yeah.
That's even Justin.
It's pretty fun.
Keep that loose of that middle one, and go ahead.
You guys got to walk away from the middle.
You guys got to keep walking, pull it tight, Mr. Ball. Keep going. Now are these angled? We can get away with an angled one on this one, right?
Rude. Not hard. And to lean against the running ring instead of standing.
We got two flags. We got an old flag.
And there's the boss of everything. Come up right now. Probably not. Oh, that was a terrible throw.
Good height. It's not heavy, but it has to get there. Well, there were more people standing there when I started.
And we can clear them away. I remember when we used to do this for Boy Scouts because we used to hang a huge American flag. I mean, huge. And so we have a slingshot attached to the.
So, yeah, they're disappointed. They have to be right back. Yeah. Oh, they will. What? 76? 79?
Yeah, that's what we got.
Yeah, we'll chat more.
So I mean, by working tomorrow, I mean the
That'll work.
oh, that's kind of the Americans keep black coffee.
You know, if it was just a horse, I could go down low.
So what you'll have
Up the southern states to send their militia regiments. By the end of 1776, by the end of this year, we have been inoculated for smallpox, have marched up to Maryland, gone into head of Elk, and marched on into Pennsylvania, and we are becoming now the 7th Virginia Regiment of the Continental Army. And this particular regiment went on to fight at Brandywine, Stony Point, several other battles. And what happened later is that there were so many casualties that the 7th Virginia changed, that members of the original 7th went into the 11th, members of the 11th went to Washington had to keep reorganizing and reforming his Continental Army regiments out of Virginia. And then what really happened in the war in the South leading up to Yorktown, all the Virginia regiments were either killed or captured at Charleston. And even though there were Virginians at Yorktown, they were none of the original regiments that started the war. So anyway, so what you're looking at today, we're a bunch of civilians. We're untrained. I've showed up. We're wearing what we brung. We look like Minutemen. Basically, we're the equivalent of the Minutemen out of New England, Massachusetts, in that area. We've also been issued, the Virginia Convention has said to issue us weapons. There are none. So I've got my hunting rifle. I just took it off the fireplace and I showed up here. Could have been from Albemarle County, Halifax, King and Queen, or Gloucester. And again, it's a little bit of a stretch, not quite the same, but to put it in the context, the National Guard. Except we're reporting to the state and not the federal government. And headed this way. So we are on standby.
Oh, come on, Alan. You'll be the first one to sign up.
Just remember this. You can look at the camera. That building was standing here when the original 7th Virginia was here, as well as this building.
Wow. You took Wormer.
I was going to say, we'll do that right here.
You know,
I myself, I'm in the infantry. I usually carry the muskets, and I haven't done this myself either, so we're going to learn a little something together.
Hello there, hi. My name is Glenn Bittner. I'm a private here in the 7th Virginia Regiment that actually mustered here in Gloucester Courthouse. We're on the actual grounds where all this happened, and it's a pretty important place, the 7th Virginia Regiment. Well, several counties from eastern and central Virginia decided to form the 7th Virginia, and this is where they first mustered. And it was very critical here in the Eastern Campaign early in the war. We were involved in the Battle of Cricket Hill in Matthews County that drove Governor Dunmore off the coast of Virginia, and he was the last royal governor in Virginia, and he was forced out of Virginia due to the efforts of the 7th Virginia. Well, the question was how I basically got involved in reenacting, and I'd been involved, or at least interested since a very early age, in Virginia prehistory, and I became very interested in Virginia Indians. And over time, I developed some associations with people in that department, and eventually, when I retired from my normal modern job, I decided to work for the Jamestown-Yorktown Foundation, and I became an employee in the Continental Army encampment there, and that led to my association here with the 7th Virginia. The question was, do I have any personal stories involved with reenacting? And I guess the thing that affects me most is when we have visitors who come into the Continental Army encampment in Yorktown and see what these men and women did to give us a chance at independence and the sacrifices they made. And it's very moving to them, and quite often they get a little broke up when they understand what happened out there.
Okay, I'm Norman Foose, and I am the sergeant of the Line Infantry Company of the 7th Virginia, and we are here at Gloucester Courthouse commemorating the first muster of the 7th Virginia in 1775. Well, in this period in history, every able-bodied man between the ages of 16 and 60 was required to be a member of the militia. And the 7th Virginia was culled from the militia, so they meet here in 1775. This is the first organizational meeting of the 7th Virginia. They don't have uniforms. They're appearing as they would in their militia companies, and that's what we are. We're here, we reported, we're getting ready to do something. Oh, well, that is quite a story. This goes back about 40 years when our kids were about this high, and we were looking for something to do with our spare time that we could do as a family. Well, we went to a reenactment, and the men, the women, the children all had roles to play. And we said, hey, this is neat. So we followed the Brigade of the American Revolution around for about a year, joined up, got into it. My wife and I have been doing this now for 40 years. It is one of the best things we ever did, particularly in terms of bringing the family together, because we were able to do things as a family together. And the kids are grown, and they've got kids of their own now. But for my wife and I, it just gets better and better. We're doing different things than we did back then, but the more we get into it, the funner it gets. Well, favorite areas. I think perhaps Great Bridge is one of my favorites, because we can do the reenactment almost on the actual site of where the American fortifications for Great Bridge actually were. If you do the research, or if you do a little reading, it's down in Chesapeake on Great Bridge Boulevard, where that big green bridge goes over the Chesapeake and Albemarle Canal. At the south end of that is where the American fortifications were. About 400 yards to the north of that is where the British fortifications were, and about 400 yards to the south is the church where the main American force was. And you can walk the field, you can see right where it was, and we do the reenactment there every December in the weekend as close to December 9th as we can get it, virtually on the site.
They went north of Germantown to score a small victory just for morale, just to say we won a battle. It wasn't significant.
My name is Mike Cecere. I am the current commander of the 7th Virginia Regiment, so I guess that would make me the captain. And we are at Gloucester Courthouse in Gloucester County, Virginia. And I could not think of a better place to be for the 7th Virginia, because this is where our unit was first posted. And so we're always thrilled to come here. We've been doing this event almost 12 to 15 years now. And it's always one of our best events, one of our favorite events. And this guy right here played a big role in that, and some of the others. It was 1999. I'm a teacher by trade. I was teaching, I taught mostly American government, but I just started teaching some American history, and I wasn't very good. There was nothing, it was just, I was in over my head, I was relying too much on the textbook and all that, but I was interested, I'd always been interested in history. So thanks to the internet, I noticed that there was a reenactment down in Petersburg. So I put on some flip-flops, it was a nice sunny April day, I had a tie-dye shirt on, shorts, I went down with a baseball cap, and I ran into this guy right here, and some of the others of the 7th Virginia, and they were doing a reenactment. And I was just captivated. I stayed the entire day, late into the night. They stayed around the campfire. I met a number of men, but Irv here, at one point, I guess he noticed I was really, really interested. So he took me out off to the side, and we don't normally do this, and probably I shouldn't be saying this on film, but he allowed me to fire his musket. Okay? I mean, I was an adult, so it's not like he was taking a kid out there. Again, this was 15 years ago. And I was hooked. I was amazed. It was fun. And I think a few weeks later was a national event in Boone's Homestead in Pennsylvania. And a handful of the guys were going up there, and because of AOL and the internet, I was able to get a lot of my material, my things. So I was kitted out. And the very first night, my first event was up there in Pennsylvania. I'm lying out there in a tent. They provided me with a tent. I had one wool blanket, no straw, and I'm laying in this thing. I'm thinking, hey, it's May. It's going to be warm enough. I was freezing. And so about 4 o'clock in the morning, I dragged myself to the car to warm up, thinking I was a failure. What kind of reenactor does that? And little did I know, as I'm walking past these tents, there's a sleeping bag here and, straw. It was a learning experience. It's like, see, we try to hide things, but we're not as hardy as the men back then, so we can't most of us can't endure what they endured, especially at our age and our conditions. So you'll see a lot of people cutting corners. There are some that won't. I mean, there are some that really will try for the full experience. I remember being at Fort Ty in New York and seeing these young men from Ohio or the Midwest come in, and they had in a cooler they had a dead rabbit, and they proceeded to skin it in front of me and then cook it up over the fire, and that was pretty amazing. It's like I'm not ready to go to that level yet. Got a lot of stories, but and we've done a lot of really neat things. There are different kinds of events in this hobby. There are living histories like what we have here today. Then there are big national events for the public, battle events, and then there are these things we call immersion events. And I think of all the events that I've done, my first immersion event was in November. Excuse me, in a place called Principio, Maryland. And it was a 24-hour, what we call tactical. And so we were supposedly on, like, it was live for a full day. And there were moments that were incredibly boring, but I remember thinking, well, I'm standing here guard duty, there's nothing going on, but that's what they went through, and that's cool. And it was a very tense, very revealing week 24 hours. I was exhausted, but I also had a lot of fun. Now, at the end of it, my group of guys decided to go pay a visit on the enemy, so we took this long route to try to sneak up on them. And when we got to their camp, they weren't there. And we looked to our left, and they were out exercising and doing some drill, and they saw us. So our surprise, we didn't surprise them, they surprised us. And I'll never forget this part, because I'm in with a bunch of young men who are much better in shape than I, and we all turn, and my commander was leading us, and he runs past, and as he runs past, he says, "Every man for himself," run past me. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm the slowest one here, I'm a dead man. So we all turn and run, and they had Indians with them, and they're chasing us, and I've never ever been so scared and so excited in my life. I should have died of a heart attack, or I should have ran into a tree, because the whole time I'm thinking, I know they're zeroing in on me. I know they're I'm thinking of like the sick gazelle that the lion always goes after. That was me. But luckily I made it. At some point they gave up. I outran them and survived. And that event, I'll never forget that. That was neat. But I want to add though that like where we are at Gloucester, last year this unit helped put on a national event with the 1st Virginia, and one of our members, Warren Deal from Gloucester, was very important in that whole process, and so I'm pretty proud of that. So the 7th Virginia does a lot of neat things around here. South Boston, we've been doing a lot in South Boston, the crossing of the Dan, and a lot of Virginia events nowadays. So again.
Monroe, Michigan, down on Lake Erie. And my dad grew up.
They were with a group of Quakers, is that where they were?
But on the July 4th, they have a picnic and barbecue.
Are you going to be there for
July 5th, they do a reenactment. My name is Drummond Ball. I'm the ensign for the 7th Virginia Regiment. 7th Virginia Regiment is made up of a number of branches and parts of it. And part of it is a line company, part of it is a rifle company, and part of it is artillery. And depending on which battle or reenactment we do, depends on which of those branches are featured or most used. This is the Gloucester Courthouse, and this time in June or late May of 1776, the 7th Virginia Regiment was formed. There were like 14 regiments in the colony formed at different places. This particular one was formed by men from Gloucester County and surrounding counties. And it was particularly called in because Lord Dunmore, who had left Williamsburg, the royal capital, and gone on board some ships in Norfolk, had decided that the Norfolk port wasn't the best place and it did not have the features he wanted to take back the colony from the rebels, you might say, that's what they were called. And so he moved his center to Gwynn's Island, which is east of here about 30 miles. So the regiment here in the 7th Virginia Regiment was formed as part of the defense to move our regiment east toward Gwynn's Island and to keep raids from emanating from that island. On Gwynn's Island, the Royal Governor, Lord Dunmore, had at his disposal some Royal troops, the 14th Regiment of Foot. He had some slave or colored troops, as they were called. That would be the Royal Ethiopian Corps that he developed. He also had a number of Marines and sailors from the British ships that were with him. So they could form quite a formidable raiding party, maybe taking supplies, maybe doing some destruction. So the convention in Richmond decided that the regiments in this area needed to move east toward Gwynn's Island for protection. I was a history major at Gordon College up in Massachusetts, and of course born in Virginia and raised in Virginia. All of us in Virginia are very proud of our history. As a matter of fact, so many of the important things that have happened in America's history happened in Virginia that it's just automatic that you're interested in history. So in the bicentennial in the 1970s, we would go and attend as a family, my wife and son and I, attend these different events and different ceremonies, and toward the end, there was one reenactment on Cape Henry over in Virginia Beach, and it commemorated the battle between the British fleet and the French fleet. I saw some reenactors there, and they had set up a camp there. And I was so overwhelmed with the authenticity of the men, their equipment, how they conducted themselves, their firing, and the manual of arms, that I got very interested. It would just so happen that weekend that those men went to Williamsburg, to Chuning's Tavern. And my wife and son and I decided we would extend our history time. We went to Williamsburg, and there they were in Chuning's Tavern, the same guys. And so I walked in and I said, well, how do you join this sort of thing? Because I thought maybe it had to be genealogy or something. He said, no, only if you love history. So we joined in, and that would have been the summer of 1981. And then later we went to a reenactment in Red Springs, North Carolina in September to practice for the really, really big bicentennial event in Yorktown in 1981 in October. So from then on, I was hooked. You've seen a number of different uniforms, but what happens is uniforms depend on what time, which part of the war. There's an early war uniform, a mid-war uniform, and a late war uniform. The late war uniform is the one you're probably mostly used to. It's blue with red facings, a coat. Well, that forms one of my favorite events, and that was the 1981 bicentennial of Yorktown. So we arrived there like Wednesday night, and we sign up and we get our tent and area, and of course we change, and from then on we were in 18th century the rest of the 4 or 5 days. But you'd wake up in the morning and there would be the mist and the fog of the typical Virginia fall morning with hanging low, and out of the fog would march a squad of regimental soldiers, and it was almost like you were living in a different world. The whole week we lived like that, so that when I finished and it was over and we went back to work, for days and days, when I would walk down the hall of my school, I would almost think in terms of where I was and what I was doing. It was just living history, and that's one of the funs of reenacting, getting a chance to do living history.
Well, my name is actually Mary Mansouri Moayed. My position in the 7th Virginian is the Lieutenant Israel Van Dyke. And right now we're in Gloucester. We're by the Gloucester Courthouse in Gloucester, Virginia. Actually, I'm a nurse practitioner, and one of the nurses, Jimmy, was with the 7th Virginian. And he kept telling me, oh, if you like Boy Scouts and you like to camp, you should come out reenacting. And he convinced me to go to Mount Vernon for one of their big Continental Line events. And I can remember literally walking, kitted out, and going around the corner from the parking lot to see all the encampment. And I just felt like I was home. The 7th Virginia is actually a great group of people to reenact with, too. Very family focused. It's hard to explain, but if you've ever done any kind of acting in your life, every time you do a show, you kind of feel like you have your theater family. And then the show ends, and then you kind of have to say goodbye. And with this group, you just never get to have, you never have to say goodbye, because, you know, it's like, okay, well, I'll see you at the next event, you know, and it's the same group. And so there's a lot of camaraderie, and you're all on the same focus. We all love history, and this particular period of time is just something I've always adored. There, you know, it's funny because when in life in general, you have to kind of look at each day with, you know, little special moments, and or whether you made somebody's day, or a special moment that you would consider like, oh man, this makes the day. And you know, it's unfortunate to be able to pick out one special moment for reenacting, because there are so many. Most recently, I guess, would be when we were at, oh gosh, there were so many. Race to the Dan was an amazing event. And when Mike and I had gone across the river in one of the flat boats, and we were scouting out the land just to see where we could have the battle, and you know, trying to cut down a little bit of the path, and it made you really feel like you were really like pushed back in time, and you were really trying to scout out for, you know, what would be best for the men, and how would they, you know, have, you know, managed through this terrain and stuff, and I just really liked that. I liked having to try to choreograph the battle. So.
Yeah, I think it's really neat that they had actually got into ligatures the blood vessels. I would loosen the tourniquet, and I'd actually pull the blood vessels out, and I'd have pre-tied knots on here. I'd do it just like they do today. And I would leave the end of the amputation open. I would stuff it, I would bandage it up, and then every, you know, as I change the dressing, I would.
Very good. Okay, so this is the Army, so we practice this all day long. Okay, now we're going to do something fancier. So we're going to learn to load and fire our fire lock. So shoulder, fire lock. Now, the next command, so you can get one of those blacks with one drawing the gun.
Small step out. Are
you okay with that?
Today would be a really nice day.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Fire! Big bang. Get a big bang.
Open left.
Open left.
Rear rank offset.
Rear rank offset. And you fire.
Go to advance. So what you want to fire? So he's going to advance 4 paces, or 2 paces, which is 4 steps, and then he present.
Present. Fire.
Boom. Okay, now you start reloading. When you're ready, you tell me to be ready. Ready? Okay, so then I march forward.
Because in theory, the whole rank is moving.
Right.
And then.
Correct.
Pow. So what would be a normal line?
Ready.
10 men, or
as many as you can get.
As many as you can get, the more firepower, I gotta see. Out there, big line of shiny bayonets coming toward them. So hopefully they'll run away, okay? So when I say charge bayonet, all you do is put it down in front of you, pointing at the enemy. We're going to have to clear this field. Okay. That's right. March. I'll look down that.
Earpieces, everyone?
Oop, check. Check. No. They're in my box. In my little pouch here.
No powder. Earpieces? Water?
Is there? No powder.
Box, no powder right now for you.
You know, there's an irony that all the artillery might be proper color frocks, and the infantry are not.
Man out the piece.
I'll take the accoutrements.
Hey!
Thank you.
Guide upon the path! Guide upon the run! Run! Guide left! Halt! Left! Wheel! Halt! Down trail!
Search the piece. Advance the sponge.
You can imagine a horse.
Sponge the piece. And out. Cartridge.
But it is very light.
Charge the piece. Ram down the cartridge. Freaking drive.
Well, this is a smaller gun. You can have as many people pull it. You have teams that hold it and then teams that fire. And they are going through a dry run right now because the match is not lit.
Gun ready, sir!
Give. Fire. Tend the vet.
A little bit more educated than the average
And out.
soldier
Cartridge.
because they know a little bit about chemistry,
Advance cartridge.
geometry, and how to aim it. So the artillery crew is fairly important.
Charge the piece.
Still on a dry run. Spider monkeys
Ram
come
down
back to
cartridge.
the boxes now. The cartridge is up there.
Freaking
Get
drive.
away from the gun. You don't want to spare a loose part setting it off. See the gentleman on the left corner there? The thing that has looks like rope wrapped around it. That's called a lens stock.
Gun ready, sir!
Give.
That's where you actually have
Fire.
a thing that will actually ignite
Boo. Tend the vet.
and
Search the piece.
explode the charge.
Charge. Ram down cartridge.
Far right corner. Boy, got one.
Freaking drive.
Number one, he just ran that charge down into the breach. The other job that he has is spun. You'll see an actual piece of lamb's wool on the other end of that thing that is jammed.
Gun ready, sir!
Give.
Lamb's wool.
Fire. Boo. Sponge the piece.
Pop.
And out. Cartridge. Advance cartridge.
Gun ready, sir.
Give. Fire. Charge the piece. Rammed out cartridge. Frickin' front. Frickin' front! Give! Fire! Down the right, search the beat. Give! Fire! Down the right, search the piece. About the sponge. Sponge the piece. Eyes up. Cartridge. Dead. Cartridge. Charge the piece. Frickin' front. Give! Back! Left hand, search the piece.
Wait a minute.
So last round, head out, cartridge. Advance, cartridge. Charge the piece. Grab down cartridge. Give! Here it goes. Fire! Left leg, search the piece. Get the sponge, sponge the piece.
Embarrass you very quickly. Black powder, flintlock. One of the requirements of being in the Virginia militia was that you be strong-limbed, not subject to fits, and have 2 opposing teeth. The reason you needed 2 opposing teeth was for this. You load a charge into the pan. I'm not going to tamp it down, but then you would load the barrel with powder, shove the ball down in it, shove the powder down, the paper down in it. You would ram it down. Again, won't do it for safety reasons today. Then if you were in the line, you would come to shoulder. That way the officer could tell if you were ready to fire. Make ready, you bring it up, it'd be present, and nothing happens.
Treatment's over, and I usually begin to water down. But realize mercury's a heavy metal, so it remains in your body all of your life. It doesn't go away.
So what are the long-term effects of having that much mercury?
Mental. It drives you mad as a hatter. That
Order our fire off. Because if you didn't, they're supposed to fall in at the shoulder.
You take care of that.
Yeah, that's. Oh, never mind. I've got one. I got it.
There's a new sergeant.
It's supposed to fall in at the shoulder. at the position of attention. Let's get it sharp. Now that you are at that position, order, fire off. You did it right.
Types of firing, you can see how it's done, and we shorten the loading process a little bit for safety reasons. We don't ram anything down the barrel for safety reasons at this time, but you can see it takes a fair amount of time to do it anyway, even when we do it the fast way. So you get some feel for the timing involved, because we'll be firing a number of rounds in a row, sort of as fast as we can. Left. Take aim, fire! Prime and load!
Well done, lad. Well done.
See, as they shoulder their firelocks, then I know they're ready. Second section. Make ready. Take aim. Fire! Prime and load. If we pause slightly, we can make sure we have a little more coverage of having somebody loaded all the time. It actually slows down the rate of fire overall, though, so I don't like to do too much. First section. Make ready. Take aim. Fire! Prime and load.
Good volley, lad.
Make ready. Take aim. Fire! Prime and load. Company fire. Make ready. Take aim. Fire! Shoulder your firelocks. That's open hand.